Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Breckland Council's Cabinet meeting on Monday, the 16th of October. It's now 9:30. We will commence today's meeting. Item 1, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 11th of September 2023 contain within pages 5 to 9 of colleagues' agenda pack. Colleagues happy that's a true and accurate record?
Yeah.
Super, thank you very much. Apologies for absence, Teresa.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had apologies from Councillor Clausen.
Lovely, thank you very much. Declarations of interest. If any members have any declarations not already declared, please make sure you make me aware ahead of that. Urgent business. I've done urgent business.
Did you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Have any? Sorry.
Good. Item 5, non-members wishing to address the meeting. As always, all members of Breckland Council are welcome to speak on any item. I note that there are members of the public in attendance tonight, and I will make the assumption that's in relation to item 9. If I can just ask Councillor Jeremy or Councillor Land just to speak with them, I'm happy to take 2 members from the Residents Association, and if you haven't already got those names, I'm happy for you to confer during the following items just to get that in line. But you're most welcome to speak, and there are 2 microphones at the front of the table here for you. We'll move on to item is Chairman's announcements. Only announcement I've got is just in relation to the 213 million for the Norwich Western Link Road. I'm delighted that the government has confirmed that funding moving forward to Norfolk County Council. That will release some major infrastructure within the county, but more importantly, support our residents, communities and businesses in the northern part of the district. And I think it goes to show what Norfolk can achieve collectively and doesn't always require a directly elected leader. But we've moved forward, and I look forward to further announcements over the coming months. I know that this council has made representation to other infrastructure funds which are outstanding and much needed for the district predominantly, and we'll wait to see what that looks like for Department for Transport and other departments over the coming weeks and months with the autumn statement. We'll move on to item 7, which is the Breckland Community Funding Application standard item. I don't believe there are any. Super. So we'll move on to item 8, which is the Dereham Leisure Centre roof and solar panels. And I'm going to invite Councillor Crane to speak, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Breckland Council declared a climate emergency in September 2019, and shortly after that committed this organisation to become net zero by 2035, which, as we all know, is a complex challenge. One of the work streams in our sustainability strategy is to reduce our own impact on the environment, and we are making great progress as we have and continue to commit significant resources into this strategic priority to support the global battle of climate change. For example, we have already invested and implemented LED lights across the district and in our leisure centres. We have also added pool covers and destratification fans at both leisure centres and new windows at Thetford Leisure Centre. We have also been leading the way across the district with £100,000 issued as part of our Green Grants scheme, and we are planting 2,400 trees at Oxborough Hall this planting season. This report and recommendation further highlights our commitment to tackle climate change, and today I am seeking approval to invest up to £280,000, £160,000 of which is already released for Breckland 2035, so the ask is actually £120,000 additional release from the Growth and Investment Reserve to enable the installation of solar PV panels on the roof of Dereham Leisure Centre. This will deliver a £1 million cost avoidance over a 25-year period and reducing CO2 by around 47,000 kilograms a year. As Section 1.8 states, we haven't stopped here as we continue to look at other options and opportunities. It should also be noted that we expect to find out in January if we have been successful with 2 funding bids to Sport England Swimming Pool Support Fund Phase 2 Capital that would support this and other potential capital project activity. And I welcome any questions.
Thanks. Just look to Councillor Ashby or Councillor Hewitt for any further comments on this. Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Chair. I'm always a supporter of projects that pay for themselves within a 7-year payback period, particularly where they meet our 2035 objectives. I'm very hopeful, and having consulted with other executive members, that any savings from our investment can be reflected in a reduced unitary charge, which we have done on other investments in our leisure facilities in the past. And for that reason, I fully commend this report, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. Any other questions or comments in relation to this? Councillor Borrett, please.
Finally, right. Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to support Cabinet in this decision. I think this is an excellent project. Breckland has taken net zero really seriously, and this one project will reduce the amount of energy used by the leisure centre by 35%, which is a substantial amount. I'm really glad that we have the money available to invest in this, because not all councils do, and the excellent husbandry of the council over many years means that this money is put aside and is available for these sorts of projects. And I'm hoping, it'll be one of many, but I think this is a really concrete step forward in the council's green agenda, and I commend Cabinet for bringing it.
Lovely, thanks, Bill. There are no further comments. Councillor Crane, do you want to move the recommendations, please?
Would you like me to read the recommendations, Chair? Yes. No, move the recommendations. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. So there are three recommendations there, two recommendations to council and one is the delegation. Are colleagues happy with those recommendations? All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. So we'll move on to item 9 then, which is the Memorandum of Understanding with Flagship Group and Norfolk County Council regarding potential future regeneration of the Abbey Estate in Thetford. I'll keep my remarks short. So this is the second MOU which has come forward to this council. The first one was signed some years ago with the previous then leader of both Breckland Council and Norfolk County Council. And this sets out, I believe, the position of partnership working for the potential around regeneration activity on the Abbey Estate, and in no way predetermines this council's position in relation to any plan application which comes forward. I know that the councillors of Thetford have made representation to me, and I've met with them recently to discuss some of those concerns which have been raised from the residents on the Abbey Estate and the wider Thetford community. And I think we had a meaningful conversation in which you were immensely robust, set some very clear parameters and red lines in that position. And I know that ourselves, Norfolk County Council and Flagship, listened intently, and I believe that Flagship have made a positive change in their interactions with you as county, district and town councillors, but also the whole of the community on Abbey Estate. I think that the premise of the MOU is clear. There are some areas in relation to the MOU for possible future activity this council may be required to undertake under compulsory purchase orders or the position on possible land holdings by this council at section 106 and support within the planning activity. But once again, this gives no clear indication to the future of that, but to continue to work in partnership with both Flagship, the County Council, but more importantly, those elected representatives of Thetford and the community to get the best possible solution for any regeneration type activity which is to occur, or not, as the case may be. So you'll see the recommendations are contained within there. This is to give delegated authority to the Chief Executive, I didn't touch anything, to the Chief Executive and myself to sign the MOU with Flagship and Norfolk County Council regarding potential for regen. So I'll pause there. I'm happy to take any questions or comments from colleagues. Just want to make sure I get this right, Terry. Would you prefer for you and Terry Land to speak first, or would you prefer someone from the Residents Association?
If we go first, Chairman, and then I think it's useful for members of the public to follow up. Thank you, welcome, colleagues. As you've alluded to, Sam, there's significant concern within the Abbey Estate itself and wider Thetford community, in fact, about these proposals. Am I echoing? Is that okay? Shall I change? Move it back. Okay. Thank you. These are concerns that are shared by all 8 of Thetford's Breckland councillors, and we wrote to yourself as leader back in May about these concerns. And that's a position unanimously agreed with by Thetford Town Council. Whilst there is widespread agreement that investment and support is needed for this community to thrive, it cannot be overstated that the scale of these proposals that are being discussed, if delivered badly, have the potential to destroy this community, frankly, and cause issues for generations to come. Now, in my mind, there's 3 main concerns here. Firstly, the number of homes that may need to be compulsory purchased. In some reports, in excess of 300 homes. I've had hundreds of conversations with Abbey residents about these proposals, on doorsteps, in living rooms, on the street, and at meetings. The people who are often most anxious, most distressed, are homeowners. Often they are people that have lived in their properties for many years and feel most rooted and most attached to that community, as you could surely appreciate. I've sat in numerous front rooms where people have made their properties their own, made their gardens their own, and they've been really proud to show me their bit of the community and talk about what it means to them. And I've listened to stories about people being born in a property, about where children have been raised and where loved ones have died in the home. And I've heard about how one family member lives on one street but is supported by another family member on a neighbouring street. And I've discussed people's connection to the local school and how they desperately don't want to upset their child's education and be forced to move. And I've heard about how being close to work and being able to walk to work is important to them. Understanding the reasons why people don't want to leave their home and why they don't want to leave their community is absolutely crucial. And for many people, this is a community that they know and it is where they feel safe. This council, indeed many organisations, strive in many areas to create a sense of community spirit. We want people to get talking with their neighbours, we want people to have passion for where they live. Councils, including this one, spends great sums of money on developing a sense of community spirit. It's a very laudable aim. And for all its challenges, the community spirit on the Abbey estate has always impressed me. It is something that we should acknowledge as a council, something that we should work with, and something that should be absolutely integral and working alongside this regeneration project. But that community spirit could be something that's very easily destroyed too, if these plans do not progress in the right way, and we cannot allow that to happen. People are understandably anxious and they are nervous and they are very frustrated, Chairman, and people need reassurance and certainty about financial consequences where relevant, if they're being forced to move, certainty about moving costs, about where they will be forced to move to. They need to have confidence in what is being said to them. They don't need to engage in a constant game of trying to nail jelly to the wall, and it has felt like that over the past few months. And above all else, they need to be respected and they need to be listened to. Section 6.4 of this Memorandum of Understanding coldly, frankly, refers to the councils being mandated to use their compulsory purchase powers under this agreement. Compulsory purchase should be an absolute last resort. It needs to be handled sensitively and with trust at its centre, and we're a long way from that at present. Secondly, there is concern about the sheer quantity of additional homes. The Abbey is already one of the more densely populated areas of Thetford, indeed I think the whole of Breckland. There's going to be something like a net gain of 500 homes if this goes ahead, a 50% increase. Tell me a community in Breckland that wouldn't be alarmed if they were going to have that big of an increase. I think every one of you in this room would have communities who would be quite rightly contacting you with concerns. People are obviously concerned too about infrastructure, and section 6.4 of the MOU gives a commitment for there to be no commuted sums and no Section 106 contributions. I understand the sums must be tight to make the whole of this stack up financially. This is a regeneration project, after all, not a private profit scheme. But infrastructure is crucial, particularly in a community like this, and it will be for generations to come. Breckland Council needs to scrutinise this point in particular and make sure, on behalf of these residents that they get what they need, and that the number of additional homes and the tenure of those homes is right for the community, not necessarily what is right for Flagship or indeed anybody else. We are here to serve the community. It is widely known that Breckland has significant housing challenges, an ever-growing housing list, rising costs for temporary accommodation, and my big fear is that we cannot allow the pursuit of these new homes to cloud our judgment on whether they are the right homes, in the right place, and right for that community. And lastly, green spaces. For all my conversations with people about the Abbey estate, there is near universal appreciation of its green spaces. Nearly all of these green spaces on Abbey are owned by Breckland Council, but this agreement commits you to transfer them all at nil value. Again, if Flagship had to pay for this land, the sums probably wouldn't stack up. But people want these green spaces. They do not want to see infill. Again, if Breckland appreciates these green spaces, they need to ensure that there is a balance when it comes to new housing. And I'll conclude, Chairman, by saying that I fully expect and understand that Cabinet will support the Memorandum of Understanding today. I'm actually greatly heartened by section 9.1 that states quite clearly that this is not a legally binding document, as you say. But I do hope that you and Cabinet colleagues hear the concerns of councillors, hear the concerns of residents. There is a real significant risk here with this project, and we must collectively move forward. And I really want to see improved cooperation and collaboration. We absolutely must get this right. We owe it to the residents of the Abbey estate to get it right. These are their homes, after all, it's their community. Many of the people directly affected are Flagship tenants. Some of them are owner-occupiers, some of them are landlords, some of them are private renters, a whole mixture, but they are all Breckland residents. Chairman, as you've mentioned, there are two people prepared to speak today. I'm happy to leave it there, and I'm sure Councillor Land has a few words, but thank you for listening.
Lovely, thanks, Terry. Councillor Land, do you wish to go now, or do you want to come at the end of Super?
Thank you, Chair. Although I'm District Councillor for Boudica Ward, Thetford, I've been on Thetford Town Council since May as a Priory Ward representative, and I've spent much of my time since both canvassing and informally talking with residents on the Abbey estate. It's a great place. People who live there have a very strong attachment to the place. As Terry said, there is a very strong community feeling there. Prior to May's elections, we knocked on pretty well every single door throughout the entire estate. So I'd like to think we know what we're talking about when we speak on behalf of residents. 2 or so weeks ago, we held a well-attended meeting with residents on this issue, and hopefully on the way to forming a strong residents group, which I believe will only help all parties. It was immediately apparent from that meeting and every conversation I've had with a resident that there is almost no support for the Flagship regeneration, a situation that appears to be getting worse before it's getting better. And in that light, I think the job of Breckland Council is to maybe rebuild a little bit of trust. I think it's also worth pointing out the entire project, as much as it's about buildings, is about people, and I think we shouldn't forget that. And in that light, the residents I speak to feel real concern and genuine anxiety regarding the proposals. Most I speak to, including during a 2-hour litter pick we did yesterday, feel left out and left behind, frankly. The estate needs regeneration, not infill, and I would again urge Breckland to ensure all houses continue to be kept in the best possible condition before, during and after any project. As Councillor Jeremy said, residents value their green spaces and we need to keep as many as is practicable. My feeling is Breckland needs to get onto the issue now, building bridges, building trust, and most importantly, renewing the resident faith that is currently so sadly lacking. real consultation, which we haven't seen, on the ground feels a necessity. I'd ask you to fully respect the wishes of the community.
Lovely, Terry. Who are the two from the Residents Association? Would they like to come up, please? Do you want to pour them some water? Ah, there we go.
Do you want to go first?
No, you go first. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Fiona. I'm a home owner on the Abbey estate, and when I first heard about what was going on through leaflets that come through the door, about 2019 I think it wasn't until I started reading these proposals that I realised exactly what Flagship were up to, and I went around and knocked on my neighbours' houses and I thought to myself, do they really know what's going on here? And people didn't. They just thought that it was just going to be, they're going to tar up their houses, and it wasn't. So me and this other lady called Kelly got together and we put some leaflets out on the estate to actually wake our residents up to say this is what is going to happen on our estate. And it's like, this is just absolutely ludicrous. I like where I live. I've got a nice home, I've got a nice garden, I have lovely neighbours. As a homeowner, I've been there 23 years, and Flagship tenants have the ability to move around more freely than homeowners, because if they don't like it where they are, or if they fall out with their neighbours, they can put for an exchange and move off or move on. My next door neighbour's house, my next door house is a Flagship residence. I've been there 23 years, and in that time I've had 8 different neighbours move there. So ineffectively, if they don't like what Flagship are going to do, they can quite easily move on. But as a homeowner in a house that's worth less than anywhere else in the whole of Norfolk, I won't be able to move on very readily, because my home and what I can afford doesn't warrant what is out there in Norfolk anymore. My home, I had it valued £175,000 last year. It's only worth 160 now. Where else can you buy in Norfolk a 3-bedroom house with absolutely lovely floor space inside for that amount of money? The answer is you can't. You're looking at £230,000 anywhere now, or in Thetford. I can't afford that. The well-being and health of our residents is also very important. We have lovely green spaces. If you were to come onto our estate, you'll see that the children and people use the green spaces for parties. We've often had green parties in the summer. We have barbecues out there and everyone just comes along. Hasn't happened since COVID. And then you've got kids that play football continuously out on the greens. But also we have people that don't look after our estate and use it for fly tipping, which is absolutely dreadful. And Flagship should do more and put cameras up so that they can see where these things, because all the time it's always in the same spaces and it's always done by the same people. It's just that you cannot find out who's doing it, because you can't just say, I think it's him. You have to be very, very sure. We have lots of trees on our estate. When the estate was built 50 years ago, they put in trees on our estate. They're 50 years old plus. We have lovely big oak trees. We've got an array of trees. And I heard this lady over here saying that they're going to be planting 2,000 trees somewhere. We've got our trees, we've got our green spaces. We are trying to be eco to everything. And our wildlife on our estate is loads. We have squirrels, we've got deer, we've got insects, we've got lizards on our estate, would you believe it? Because I've seen them in my garden. Our wildlife is just lovely. When you see deers walking on the back green and they've got no fear of you, you just think, oh my God, how close we are to nature and the river. And it's just lovely. Cars and car parking spaces, that's the one thing that we have always said we need more of. But Flagship, when I done a car park survey, they said that we've got 2,600 car parking spaces on the estate, but only a third has been used. People don't want to park their car in the next street or down the road. They want their car where they live. So people park on the greens where they live because they want to see their car. And when you think about people, not everybody works in Thetford. We have people on the estate that are paramedics, we've got policemen, we've got care workers, we've got nurses, we've got doctors. I used to be a social worker and I use my car to travel all over Norfolk and the UK to do my job. So people do need their cars. And also you've got people that own businesses like plumbers, electricians, they also need their vans. So when they say they're doing car parking surveys, and when I went to London with Terry Land, you hear that they are reducing the amount of car parking spaces. They want to do that in Thetford. Well, they can't do that because people need their cars. We have families that may have mum, dad going out to work. They need their car. Then as their children grow and develop, they need cars to get to where they need to be. So some homes have got up to 3 cars that's needed. And also, when we think about what Flagship have done, we need investment on that estate. There's no doubt about it, but not demolition. We need our homes, and some of the residents, and especially the homeowners, have made their homes absolutely beautiful, and they have been there many, many years, and they don't deserve what's going to come. And it's not all about what Flagship wants. They have to listen to us, and I believe they have not listened to us from the very start. They've railroaded us into these meetings. They've got these boards up, and they're telling us what we want. And when you go and look at what they're trying to propose to us, it will not fit on our estate. It just doesn't fit. And the regeneration, we just need someone to come along and tidy up the estate. We don't need bulldozing. We don't need Flagship bulldozing us as residents, whether we are homeowners, tenants or landlords, bulldozing us into things that they want and not what we want. And I do believe they have not listened to any of us at all. Sorry, that's my rant over. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona.
Okay. I've lived on the estate in my house for 53 years. I've brought my children up there. All my memories of my husband are there. We first heard about these plans in 2019. So for 5 years, I've had it hanging over me that I'm going to lose my house. I don't want to move at my age. I'm settled. I have nice neighbours. I think if I have to move, I won't want to come back to the Abbey estate. It won't be the estate that my children have grown up on and that I've lived on happily for 53 years. I could go on and on, but Fiona has put the case so eloquently. I just ask you all, how can you be impartial in backing this scheme and giving permission for it too? I'd ask you all to search your consciences and think what it's like for people like us that live on the estate. And that's all I'm going to say because I'm going to get a bit upset. But thank you for listening to me. Bless you.
No, thank you both for taking the time. So if I can just try and respond to Fiona and the lady in Councillor Land and Councillor Jeremy's initial comments, then I'll invite questions and comments for other colleagues around the chamber. So just to set out a really clear precedent, and Terry, hopefully yourself and Councillor Land will recognise that this was due to come to Cabinet in September of this year, and I gave you a commitment that unless you had seen a change in the behaviour and engagement with Flagship, that I would not take it to Cabinet until you had given me confirmation that you had seen some change. You said that it had, not to the degree I think all of us would want, but you had seen some positive changes in their behaviour with supporting yourselves, the resident associations, communications and activity of getting individuals to see other schemes across the country. So that's why it's now come forward to today. Obviously, the previous MOU is still intact. This is an updated position, and I just want to be really clear that this is not the council at all predetermining the future of the Abbey estate. This is to allow a commitment in principle to Norfolk County Council, but more importantly, Flagship, to continue to work with you as the residents of that community around what you need for the future of that estate. Now, whether it was Peddars Way or today as Flagship, I would believe that the relationship has been poor. And back in the day, we used to have dedicated Peddars Way officers within the estates, within Thetford and across the district. And Flagship have learnt from that, and they've now understood that they need positive engagement with all of you across all of our communities to ensure that they understand what their duty is as landlords, but in turn, what our duty is as the district council for those open spaces, and in turn, the county council. So I think all of us have had a rocket. And regardless whether the scheme moves forward for regeneration, I think in relation to the lady's closing comments, you need some certainty. And that's why through the process, you need to understand whether regeneration activity on the size and scale of options 1, 2 or 3 will be going ahead or not at all, so that you understand what that looks like. From the position of the district council, unless we are reassured that meaningful consultation has taken place, and we have to be honest that not everybody will always agree with the scheme. There are hundreds of residents on that estate, both those in private occupancy, we heard today, Flagship tenants and private tenancies. Not everyone will always agree, but we have to ensure that over these coming weeks and months that actually it is a really honest, meaningful conversation about what the future could look like. And you can see the size and scale of those activities. Now, if Flagship is minded not to move forward because actually it's not financially viable for them to do so or anything like that, the commitment we've given to the District Council to continue to work with you and the Re-established Residents Association and to undertake appropriate management of our land won't stop. We will continue to do what we should have always been doing in a really meaningful way. And I'm pleased that under Terry, that actually the Residents Association has stood back up again, because I remember when I lived in Thetford, it was a really strong, active community. In relation to some of the activities which Terry raised around CPO powers, I would hope that if we ever got to that position, that we will work through really robustly the requirements as to why. And we will have to be convinced that any individual in which they've cited the requirement for CPO has done everything in their power to mitigate the need to exercise that requirement as the local housing authority. Now, you'll see that some schemes are in central London, which you may or may not have visited. Some of those schemes have stalled for many years because of CPO requirements, and that's delayed the whole of those regeneration activity. So our pushback to Flagship have always been, yes, we at the moment hold those powers. They may in the future move to a county devolution directly elected leader, but whoever it is must ensure that they're doing everything to reassure those private owner occupiers around those requirements. And I think your feedback, all 8 of you to Flagship around their promise in their document didn't go far enough to give that reassurance of a like-for-like within the existing community, and the financial gain for that wouldn't be enough, as Fiona alluded to buy another property within the fantastic market town of Thetford or the district of Breckland. I know that Flagship have heard that loud and clear. Change is always unsettling, and I think that Flagship have understood that, and as much as they may cite the thousands of individuals they've spoken to, some of those on multiple occasions, whether that's meaningful conversations and consultation is another matter. But I know from the meeting we had back in June of this year that actually they are beginning that step change. And I know from the conversations all 8 of you as district councillors have had with them, and in turn myself, that they would be ill-suited to take a plan application forward unless they're in a good place to make sure that that positive conversation has occurred throughout. And the final bit in relation to the increase of the number of units, that will be determination through that plan application. I know that you as the residents and the association, once it's fully stood up, and the councillors will work through what those look like around the types of units which are provided within that community, whether they are those continuation of single bedrooms, bungalows, houses, or some of those higher type units within the existing community. But there is nothing at the moment in time which is, this is what it is definitively going to look like. It is still a conversation. And I just want to reassure you that Breckland is a listening authority. Stand fast what people's perceptions may have been. Hopefully, Terry and others have given you the reassurance that I will always listen and I will always come out and I will always try and do what I can to support everybody across the district. And where we are, I think that regardless whether the scheme moves forward in its wider sense as presented in the paper, we need to do more to ensure that those tenants of flagships, those private tenants, but also those wider owner-occupiers have the ability to improve their stock and the homes they live in to reduce their overheads, to create more meaningful spaces, healthier spaces, and ensure that everybody is proud of Abbey Estate, not just those who live in there, but the whole of the market town of Thetford and the whole community of Breckland in turn. I'll take Councillor Clark next, please.
Thank you, my assistant there. Thanks very much, Sam. I've listened very carefully and, with concern about the residents' comments. I take some reassurance, quite a bit of assurance from your remarks, Sam, which we take as read. There is quite a question mark, I think, quite clearly in the minds of many residents and their experiences with flagship. There's a degree about trust. Some of it's around the bigger picture, what's going to happen in the future. We've all heard and seen what's happened along a much bigger infrastructure project, the HS2, with people who've had CPOs, houses blighted and the sort of sword hanging over them. And one of the things that is clear that you can't design out really antisocial behaviour, and you can't design in community spirit and homes. We're talking about homes rather than houses. I think, as I'm sure we all appreciate. I'm not a Thetford councillor, but I have actually lived on an estate for a while in Essex, but I've also been round the Abbey estate several times with other councillors there. I share their concern about green spaces and having the right type of houses in the right place, and thinking about without predetermining anything, about the local plan, what's in the right place and the right time, not just because a space happens to become available. And you're thinking about the infrastructure points that the residents have made very carefully. I'm also thinking about both. We've got two groups of tenants. We've got the tenants there who are renting and those who are owner-occupiers. And what we have to try to ensure for all the parties is that the estate continues to be maintained and improved properly, and that isn't used as an further excuse to get people to move out or neglect their properties. The other thing is thinking about the last couple of years around both mental health, but also the other pressures on the council. I'm thinking of the housing team here and how far any of the teams may need to give additional support, to residents who are going through this and looking at different alternatives. So I'll pause at that point. Also, just to note that all the housing association providers have been, not all of them, but most of them have made one appearance at least at the Overview and Scrutiny Commission, where all councils have had the ability to ask them about how they manage things on a broad brush scale, but also individual things, repairs and so forth. And I'm sure that what we've heard today and what we'll see going forward will give us greater impetus to that. So I'll stop my comments at there. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Harry. And I'll just reiterate what I said. Back in the day, Terry or I could have rang up Ivan Johnson or Dave Seaton and dragged them to any housing estate in Thetford to see firsthand the challenges, and actually they had the flexibility to get on and do it. Flagship are in a different place and space, and I hope that regardless of what happens on the estate, that the legacy of this is a more meaningful relationship of Flagship with their residents within not just the Abbey but across the district. And I know that the councillors in Thetford have pushed hard around that single point of contact for a housing officer from Flagship, and I think that has seen some positive outcomes. The frustration is that we just need to get the basics right, and once we've got the basics right within the community, that gives us licence to have conversations about what the future and opportunities could look like. And we haven't got the basics quite right. We're moving in the right direction, but we haven't, across the piece, got the basics right. Paul.
Thank you, Sam. Genuine cooperation or collaboration, particularly with large-scale projects, is always difficult, especially when they involve change. It's often said that people don't mind change, but they do mind being changed. And ultimately, this project is one requiring change. I think the memo of understanding offers a way forward and a degree of certainty where that change can meaningfully be achieved. It provides opportunities and responsibilities on all parties, ourselves, Norfolk County Council and Flagship. But I think these responsibilities extend wider, actually, than the three parties in the memorandum. They extend to us all, our press, our communities, our representatives, not to inflame, but to collaborate in a meaningful and honest way. Ultimately, as is clear by Section 2 of the key objectives of this project, this is a regeneration project that seeks to create meaningful change and enhance the estate in order to generate benefits to our residents. And our residents, I believe, are the key stakeholders in this change. If collaboration, as outlined in the memo of understanding, is to be genuine, we do need to listen to our stakeholders, our tenants, our residents, and our homeowners, and to proceed with caution in order, as Councillor Jeremy says, to get this right. I think this memo of understanding provides a framework where we can achieve that, but we must be cautious.
Thanks, Sam. First thing I want to say is I was really interested that Breckland Council seems to be transferring the land that it owns at nil value, which will come as a surprise to other residents and parishes in this district who have been expected to pay when they want land that Breckland owns transferred to them for community use. So that's the first thing I want to say. I found that very interesting. The Section 106 bit concerns me as a member of the planning committee. What you're effectively saying in this document, it says you'll use your best endeavours to exclude from any planning agreements the requirement to pay any commuted sum, Section 106 contributions or community infrastructure levy should that be introduced at a later date. That concerns me, and I think that will concern the residents because this is now a publicly available document. Section 106 is a tool that we use under the Town and Country Planning Act to make sure that developers pay for the things that communities need. So in reference to open space, if there is to be open space on any changed development on the Abbey estate, there may be a need for play areas, etc., sport provision, I don't know. But this document is basically telling the planners in this building that you're going to exclude, or in best endeavours to exclude Section 106 commitments. And let's be honest, Flagship is a business. It's not a charity. It's there in the business of making money. And I find it very difficult to comprehend, and I'm sure the residents of that estate will find it very difficult to comprehend the fact that this council is seeking to pass over land that it owns for free to Flagship for this development, and we are basically saying the basic tools that we have available as a planning authority, we are looking to suppress those for the betterment of Flagship housing. That concerns me greatly as a member of the planning committee. Yes, there may be viability challenges, but let Flagship come forward with their viability assessments and let this authority challenge those. We employ a third party to review viability assessments. I don't think we should be in the business of entering into agreements with a potential developer, because that's what it is. This planning application will come from a developer, and we're basically looking at this and giving them free rein to say we're going to do our very best to make sure that you won't have those Section 106 commitments. I think this agreement is badly written. It's an agreement that has been provided by Flagship. I don't think it's one that's been produced in this building. And I honestly would urge caution before agreeing to take this on. I seriously think you can say that it's not a legally binding agreement, which then makes me think, well, what's the point of signing it in the first place? Why bother? Why not just carry on, having the conversations with Flagship and hold their feet to the fire to make sure that the residents get the very best for the residents. I have concerns as a member of that planning committee that eventually I'm going to get a planning application come before me, and this won't have gone through the same processes that every other planning application has to do in terms of viability. So I'd like some surety on that, and I'd like to actually know that the planning department and senior officers have been consulted on this and everybody's on board. And finally, the longer this thing goes on, I'm very conscious of the lady who spoke very eloquently about her property that she owns, and that obviously with all this going on in the background, the value of her property has diminished, and that'll be the same for other homeowners on that estate. And the longer this goes on, we are limiting the ability of those residents, if they do want to move at this moment in time, they're effectively penalised financially. So do we have some surety for the residents of a time frame for this, or do we anticipate this is going to go on for years and years and years? And you're quite right, Sam, when you talk about compulsory purchase, that's when the lawyers get involved and the whole thing could be stuck in the courts for years. How are we going to help this lady and other residents like her who own their homes to give them some surety? Because at the moment they've got the sword of Damocles hanging over them, and we're not really giving them any surety about an end date for this, when they'll actually know what the situation's going to be. So that's from me. I could go on about the land, transfer of the land, but the Section 106, I urge you strongly consider what you do here. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. I'll invite Rob just to come in as the council's monitoring officer shortly, but just try and work backwards, and I will make the assumption you've read our promise and support to the Abbey residents in relation to any profit supposedly made from that scheme will be put back into the scheme within Flagship's position. But I think it comes back to my previous comments around home ownership, as I said, around the CPO position, and I'm sure that Councillor Jeremy and Councillor Land backed briefly from our meeting back in June, that actually the position on CPO for a like-for-like or appropriate market value was not robust enough, and that was one of our pushbacks to Flagship. So I think I've already responded to that piece in relation to Fiona's concerns, which I share in those widest sense. In regards to the legally binding, unless you want to dispute with the council solicitor, this isn't a legally binding document, but it is an important position for the board of Flagship that ourselves in Norfolk County Council refresh and review this MOU. We could not, and we could allow the previous MOU to continue forward, but this is an appropriate juncture of where we are as a council, following on from some of the conversations we've had with the community and most recently the newly elected representatives in Thetford. This gives a clear indication to the board that if they want to proceed, that they've got to undertake some work to ensure that we as a district council will continue to work in partnership, rather than it be on hearsay and on the leader's word or the cabinet member's word or an officer's word. This is a public transaction in which everybody is aware of what we expect and what the community will expect from us, the county council and Flagship itself. So the board can now respond. The board may wish to no longer progress with this after hearing some of the position of this council. But in turn, it allows us to have a strategic seat round that steering group and to continue to kick the board in the right direction to ensure that if they were to progress with this regeneration project, that they're hearing loud and clear in a bit of a pincer movement from the community group and the Residents Association, those residents, the district, town and county council in Thetford, but also ourselves at the county council and this district council at a senior political level as well. In relation to the land holdings and the land values and the S106 position, I'll just allow Rob to come onto that to make sure I don't fall foul of it or I'm flippant in my remarks to relation to you as a member of the planning committee predetermining your position on this application if it was to come forward.
Thank you, Chairman. I can be absolutely clear that whatever decisions taken by Cabinet today will unfetter the decision that will be... It's not just you, Terry. The decision taken here today won't affect in any way the decision that will come forward potentially for consideration by our planning committee. I can give you our absolute assurance that any planning application that comes forward will be considered by us as a local planning authority in the same way and following exactly the same process that any other planning application of such scale and such size coming forward would be. That can involve viability assessment, can involve 106 negotiation. It will follow exactly the same process, legally and statutorily defined, that any application would have to follow. This report is deliberately silent on anything specific regarding the regeneration of the scheme and the proposals, and that's quite deliberate because it's not the preserve of Cabinet to consider that. That responsibility rests with the planning committee. So on the first level, absolutely, if a planning application comes forward, it will come forward to us as a local planning authority, will be considered by planning committee and will be dealt with as any such application should be dealt with.
Thank you for that clarification, Rob, but that's not what this document is saying. This document is sending a message out to the residents. What you're actually saying in this document is the council and county council shall use best endeavours to exclude from any planning agreements the requirement to pay any commuted sum, Section 106 agreements and or community infrastructure levy should that come forward. You're actively saying in this document that this council will look to exclude any such requirement. That's my issue. If you're telling me that it's going to go through the viability assessments and everything that any other application would have to go through, then I say to you in all conscience, this section needs to come out of this document. You're sending the message out to the residents and you're telling Flagship we're going to do our best. That's what this document says. We're going to do our best to exclude those requirements. And I urge you, please, think before you sign this document on that specific. The land thing, yeah, we can talk about that. But this Section 106 thing is a really crucial thing. I think there's a protection there for residents to make sure that it's gone through due process. If it goes through viability assessments and then we challenge those viability assessments through the normal way, as we do, then that's fine. That's a transparent process. But with this document, this is what Flagship want you to sign. You're saying, you're sending that message to that community. You're actively looking to exclude from any planning applications the requirement to pay any commuted sums, Section 106 contributions or community infrastructure levy. This council shouldn't be giving that undertaking to anybody. As a planning authority, we have processes. And I please urge you to think about this. This is really important. On that one line in this document, I have a real grave concerns. Thank you.
Thanks, I'll in a second, but I've got Councillor Borrett next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. People have spoken very powerfully here this morning, and I hope that Flagship take due regard to the comments that have been said, because I think there is a very strength of very strong strength of feeling. And it does sound to me that the process in the past has not been ideal. But I would just like to draw members' attention to paragraph 1.4, which was, members will be aware that the Abbey Estate faces a number of socio-economic challenges and is in the 10% most deprived neighbourhoods in the whole country. The proposed activity would seek to address these challenges and create places where people want to live, develop thriving communities, and create safe, inclusive environments. That is the point of this project. It is not for profit, it is for social good. Councillor Jeremy said that he welcomed the investment and support. So I think that there is some confusion from Councillor Attewell in that the overall project is designed to produce the benefits that we would see from a 106 or commuted sums. That is the point of the entire proposal. It says that it's going to require £250 million worth of investment. That is money going into Thetford to create better outcomes for people. I absolutely fully accept that Flagship haven't handled this as well as they should have done, and I welcome the comments from the Leader of the Council to hold their feet to the fire in making sure that residents are considered, because we have a duty to our residents. That's what we're here for. Breckland is here to serve its residents. So I do support what's proposed here, because if we don't do this, then this very ambitious project to create improvements in people's lives and environment won't be able to go ahead. So I do endorse the project to Cabinet, and I hope they go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, I need to use it because people at home may be listening, so apologies for any of the feedback. Sorry, we're getting feedback on both. To reiterate in part of the previous comments I made where I was getting some feedback is our IT technician's pointing through the door telling me where to place the mic. Apologies. So, to reiterate the previous comments I made, just to make sure they're clear, this report is silent on the specific proposals that we understand the community being consulted on and may come forward in a planning application in due course. The reason it's silent on that is because that's not the preserve of Cabinet, that's the preserve of the local planning authority and planning committee, and they need to look at those matters unfettered by any wider discussion. An application, should it come forward from the Flagship Group regarding the regeneration of the Abbey Estate, will be dealt with entirely as it should be following statutory process, and we'll follow exactly the same process we'd consider any other application. That includes a full and robust viability assessment, so we won't in any way change the approach we would take to viability, and if members of the planning committee want to challenge that viability at any stage, they can do and make the appropriate challenges and make the appropriate changes as they go forward. The intention of section 6.4 in this report is very much, as Councillor Borrett has alluded to, is to try and, where possible, if we're in agreement with the proposals that are coming forward, is to try and make sure the overall viability of the scheme works and is successful. That's best endeavours. It's not contractually and legally binding and shouldn't be any way taken to influence or decide or fetter any other decision taken by the local planning authority. So there is no binding commitment here regarding the Section 106 agreement, and it will follow a due and separate process through the planning authority's role.
Lovely, thanks, Rob. Any other questions or comments? Phil, please.
There we go. Hopefully we'll get no feedback. I've been very impressed today with the level of debate and discussion, particularly from those who would not normally want to speak in a forum like this. Emotion is very difficult to contain, in any particular topic which has a very personal impact on individuals. And I congratulate those who've spoken. And that's all of us, actually, because this particular document, I think, is maybe being taken a little bit out of context. And I'll explain why I say that. So if we look at in the paper that precedes the memorandum, under the options with which we're faced, we're given two. One is to say yes to the memorandum, and the other is to do nothing. And there's a very serious health warning, I would suggest, in the second item, because it goes on to say it will put the ability of Breckland Council to shape the proposals and ensure strong engagement from political and community stakeholders, and that's exactly the people with whom we've been engaging this morning. And that would be more limited. And that actually worries me more than anything, if I'm honest, because as a council, I believe we are a caring council. We're a listening council. We do things in ways that most councils perhaps do not. We do them in a way that hopefully engages with people, and I think you've heard from the leader today that we have stood up to Flagship as a council and said, look, you're not doing things properly. You need to get your act together. You do need to talk. You need to understand the concerns. You need to be totally involved with all those residents in the Abbey estate and understand their concerns rather than your own. And I believe that's the way this council is working to try and deliver that. And I totally agree with some of the comments that the leader made earlier about previous incumbents on the Abbey, that yes, we would be able to pick up the telephone and speak to individuals. And I can recall some years ago now when I chaired the scrutiny committee that was exactly the case. We got significantly, in those days, much better response and respect, if I might use that word, from previous housing associations than we've had hitherto from Flagship. And that came across during those meetings many years ago. And I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed, I'll be honest, to hear that they've tried, these are my words, to railroad things through. And I think they do need a wake-up call. They do need to be totally involved. And I have some concerns about their ability to do that. But unless we're at the table, actually working with them, guiding them, supporting our residents in that process, I fear for the process in itself. So whereas there are some items that kind of read a bit strangely, I agree, in the memorandum. You know, the word best endeavours is a wonderful legalistic get-out-of-jail card. And then paragraphs 9.1 and 9.2, which says actually it doesn't really matter what you sign, it doesn't matter, it has no legal entity. But what I think, and I believe this document is trying to do, is to ensure that all the parties stay literally engaged. And when I say all the parties, I mean all the parties, and that's not just the three principles in the memorandum. But as the district council, as the planning authority, we have a total responsibility for our residents and our businesses in the district. And in that case, I fully anticipate and expect that as the district council part of this memorandum, we have sitting, literally shoulder to shoulder with us, all those folk in Thetford who would be affected in one way, shape or form by this document. So we would be there working with them in this memorandum of agreement. If we're not there, then I'm afraid I think we lose that ability. We run the risk of having things done to us. As has often been said in the past, Breckland is very good at doing things to others. I don't think that's what this is. I think this is Breckland actually working with those key stakeholders. And it's a dreadful word to use, stakeholder. They're our residents. They're the people we represent. They're the people that you, Harry and Terry and so on, represent. They're not stakeholders, they're people. They're people with homes, they're people with lives, they're people with relationships. And I think it's absolutely important that if Flagship are keen to do this, and bear in mind it is Flagship who are driving this, not the council, then we need to be at the table driving it in the way that we believe it should be driven for the benefit of the residents of Breckland, and not for the benefit necessarily of those in Flagship. So Sam, I'd just like to stop at that point because I think that sums up my views.
Thanks. Councillor Attewell?
Yeah, thank you, Phil. You spoke very eloquently as usual. One thing I would just point out, where we say we need to be at the table, it's not lost on me that we own the land. So why wouldn't we be at the table? Because without us as the landowners, it's not going to happen. So some of it, but it's a significant part of the development. And the other question is, and I thank you for saying once again, and the leader has, that the interest of the residents is paramount. Can I ask why the Residents Association isn't a party to this agreement? Why haven't we included them as a signatory to any agreement to get round the table and make them feel involved? Because at the moment, you're signing something that's two local authorities and a housing association. You're going to get together and do apparently what's best for the residents, but there's nothing here that the Residents Association can buy into. Just wondering, has that been considered, and why haven't we got them involved in the agreement for all parties?
Thanks, Roger. So I'll just work backwards. The Resident Association isn't fully stood up yet. Councillor Jeremy and colleagues are working hard to get that re-established after some years of that being dormant. But the same principle is Thetford Town Council isn't a signatory to this MOU either. This is a this is a MOU on those principal authorities who will be able to support any delivery of regeneration work if it was to move forward on that estate. So as the biggest landholder ourselves and Norfolk County Council and Flagship as the stockholding organisation for that estate, that's why those three are the signatories to that. Now that's not to say that as that moves forward, if the Residents Association stands up appropriately to do so, that outside of the MOU, because the MOU is not a legally binding document, that the strategic working group, which I sit on with the leader of the county council, can't have something, for example, the chairman of the Residents Association, and that is something I have raised with the chairman of Flagship. But for the principle of the MOU, there's no requirement and no benefit for them being signatories to that, because I think, as you've already heard from my previous response to you and others, it's our ability to be around that table and influence, and therefore for me to be a signatory to that and then offer and request that someone from the Residents Association is present at that has a greater benefit. So there's no benefit of someone from the Residents Association being the signatory to this, as they're not a legally recognised entity. Councillor Jeremy, is there anything you want to just summarise at the end with, or Councillor Land?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very grateful for the comments this morning. As I alluded to, I fully expect the agreement to be signed, but I think it is really important, as has been demonstrated, that there's a line in the sand been drawn, and we need to move forward in a better way than has been the case so far. Residents of Abbey have been at a disadvantage over the last however many years, because there's been lots of individual conversations between Flagship and individual residents. What we need is an organised group to work with Breckland, to work with Flagship, to essentially hold their feet to the fire on behalf of residents, and that's what we're determined to do. I think there's a willingness and support from Breckland to enable that to happen, and I hope that the other parties buy into that as well. I hope to be able to come back in the future and be able to say that whilst there's not universal support, there is a greater degree of support than there is at the moment for this. It is potentially an opportunity, but it's potentially really dangerous news for Abbey. I, for many years, was a councillor for Borough Ward, as most of you will know. It's where I was born and grew up. I specifically changed wards this year and stood for Priory Ward, because I am so concerned that if this goes ahead in the wrong way, this will destroy this community, and we absolutely cannot allow that to happen. So I expect lots more conversations in the months ahead, and very grateful for colleagues' support today.
Thanks, Terry. And so I'll just summarise before I move the recommendations. And Terry, you and I worked around challenges on the Formston Road when we saw the collapse there, and the position around the Pine Close and Melford, where regeneration work. And that was small. I absolutely acknowledge that was small in scale, but we did it in a different type of way where the residents were leading that with us, along with Peddars Way and then in turn Flagship. I absolutely acknowledge that the Abbey estate is on a larger scale. And some of the concerns raised by learned colleagues around that infrastructure levy, S106, are those type of things we fought through when we were doing those regeneration types of work then. And absolutely, as the monitoring officers alluded to, it's got to go through that checks and balances. But the principle was that that money was going to be pumped into those estates, those communities, to make sure that everybody saw the benefit from it. I just want to thank the residents from Abbey to come along this morning. I know that you've taken time out of your busy diary and taken time off work to be here. Just to reassure you that not just Terry and Terry, but all 8 of your councillors absolutely hold me to account on your behalf. And Terry's known me long enough, and I'm sure he's let you know that I care passionately about Thetford and all the 4 other market towns as well. If there's any point you want me to come and speak to you, I'm more than happy to. Please don't think that we're this beast and this entity who lives in Dereham and doesn't care. We absolutely do, and I think you've heard that today. This is about us working in partnership with you, your elected representatives, to make sure we get the best possible outcome, whatever that is. And if Flagship are minded to move forward with a plan application, that's none of me and my colleagues round the cabinet table. That's the planning committee taking on its merits and the application strengths itself away from us. But I think the purpose of us as cabinet, as the leaders on behalf of you, the community, is to make sure that Flagship listens really clearly to all the concerns we have on that estate and that community to date. We work through those regardless of what a future plan application may or may not be, and that you understand that for those who are owner-occupiers, those who are private tenants and those who are tenants of Flagship, that everybody is doing what they need to do to make sure we bring those homes and those communities up to muster, but also those open spaces which are in my control and the county council's control, and in parts of the town council, do what they need to do to make sure that that the Abbey estate continues to be a brilliant community, which it once was, and that some of those areas which are no longer in use, such as the play park and the beach and the waterfront, come back into use to make sure that everyone gets the opportunity to enjoy it for years and decades to come. So if there are no further questions for comments, Paul, is it anything pertinent? I don't want to talk about planning committee. Good, thank you. So we'll move the recommendation. So the recommendation is as that the Cabinet gives delegated authority to me and the Deputy Chief Executive in consultation with me as the Leader of the Council to sign the Memorandum of Understanding with Flagship Group and Norfolk County Council regarding potential future regeneration of the Abbey estate in Thetford. Can I see all those in favour, please? Thank you. That's moved. We'll move on to item 10 then, which is the ARP notes of the minutes which took place on the 12th of September. Sarah will take any questions or comments on those as she attended in Phil's absence. There aren't any. Okay, thank you. We're duly noting those. So item 11 then, the date of the next meeting will be Monday the 27th of November, 9:30 here, the Anglia Room at Breckland Council. I now formally close